What's going on, guys? We are back again for another fragrance review, and today I'm going to be talking about Opus I and II from Amouage, so stay tuned for that. And if you like the content, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. So today, Tabletop Crew is running through again. I'm going to film with this style again. I do actually kind of like this style. It gets a nice view of the perfumes or whatever I'm talking about. Plus, I feel like it's a little bit easier to talk freely and casually, and I do like that. I got an Amouage Discovery set from the Opus line. This is not one that's talked about a lot, so people do tend to talk about like Interlude Man, Epic Man, Reflection Man, all those ones, but they don't really talk about the Opus line, so I was very curious about this. So this is a library collection, and they do have a discovery set available. I think there's actually 10 or 11 fragrances in the set. This one only comes with 6 of them, but it is a nice way to get a sample of them, to get your nose on them. And I'm gonna actually be doing this whole the whole collection, or at least all 6 of them. I think I'm gonna do 2 at a time, just because it's a little bit easier to you know, get through the set when I have actually about 50 or 60 decants to review, and I think this just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to talk about both these fragrances. They do come in nice little glass decants, making it nice and easy to actually sample them and spray them, and it is a pretty good amount of juice, so you can definitely get a few wearings out of these. So I have here Opus 1, and I'm also going to talk about Opus 2. So let's just get right into it. Opus 1 to me is actually a very floral fragrance, and it comes off, especially in the opening, very, very powerful white florals, and it does have a lot of ylang-ylang in it, and that actually gives me the impression of Aqua Vitae Fort by Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I know for me, especially on my skin, that ylang-ylang note is very, very prominent in that fragrance. Now, they don't smell the same, but that note and the prominence of that note to me is very, very similar, very reminiscent of each other. But it has a lot of white florals in it, and I don't really get much else from that, although in the opening, this one actually kind of has a babyish vibe. So this one does have a bit of a baby oil vibe to it in the opening, which is a little bit unusual, but I think it's a mixture of some of the other notes, and it's a little strange because this one does have, you know, notes of cardamom, orange, and plum. I don't really get a lot of that. I get, you know, a little bit of sweetness in with this, but this is predominantly floral. I do get hints of the incense during the mid and more towards the dry down, and I don't really get much else from this one. So this is one that I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of, and did, you know, make me understand maybe a little bit more why people don't talk about the library collection as much. I'm just personally not that impressed with this one, but I think this is one that is also much better suited for a woman, especially a more mature woman. I'll say, you know, there's nothing really, you know, sexy or appealing about this fragrance, but it's not something that would put people off. It just gives a sort of luxurious, you know, mature woman kind of vibe, and I think it is the combination of that ylang-ylang and the white florals that are in it, making it give off that impression. It's also extremely potent. So this one, very, very strong fragrance. Even one spray on my hand, and you know, incredible sillage. I can smell whiffs of it as my hand's just sitting there like way far away from my nose. So very, very potent fragrance. Very, very strong. Very long lasting. Performance is excellent on this one. So if you do like it, you definitely do get you know, your money's worth with respect to performance. Again, I just find it's one that you would probably wear maybe during the day, maybe in a formal event, and especially for a more mature woman. It is, I believe, a unisex fragrance, this one, but for me, it's just not one I could see ever wearing. If you are the type of guy that likes white florals, and you do like ylang-ylang as a note, then it might be worthwhile checking this one out. That's just my personal opinion. Opus number 2 is a little bit different, and it actually has some interesting and somewhat, promising notes. I was hoping that it would be a little bit boozier, as it does have a wormwood note, which is present in absinthe, as you may or may not know. And I do find this one to have in the opening, a slight bit of booziness there, but it's not really, what I would call a boozy fragrance. But the wormwood does give off sort of a reminiscent absinthe vibe. If you've actually drank absinthe, it does have a little bit of that effect. And so you might find that for you, it reminds you a little bit of that. And this one does open up very strongly with that. I get a little bit of lavender, but a lot of the incense. So it's not full-on smoky, but it is definitely something that's a little bit more incense-based, and it's not a really smoky or even a Gothic church kind of incense. It's just definitely something like an incensey vibe, but different from those ones. I don't get much of the cardamom, unfortunately. There is definitely in the mid of this a little bit of spiciness, but to me it's very faint. So this is definitely prominent in wormwood, a darker lavender because of the incense, and a woodiness. Now underneath that I do pick up a little bit of sweetness there, and I think that's a little bit partially because of the rose, a little bit because of the amber, and it just does come across a little bit sweet as well underneath it, and that does give it a nice touch. And this one also performs nicely. It's not as absolute beast mode as Opus number 1, but it is definitely one that performs. It does last a very long time on my skin, and it is pretty good projection. I would give it a solid 2 or 3 hours in the projection area, but it does definitely perform nicely. I think this one is a little bit more unisex. I could definitely see, a woman wearing this, or a man. It does definitely work either way, so it's not too masculine or too feminine. It is definitely slightly dark, but not a really dark fragrance. And it is definitely something that smells a little bit different from other fragrances. So I think that wormwood note gives it something a little bit unique. It gives it something that sets it apart from a lot of fragrances. And as I mentioned, out of the two here anyways, this is my favorite. Again, this is one that I don't absolutely love. It does smell decent. It is interesting. It's definitely niche in my opinion. And it does also have certain impressions of a woodiness there too in the base. But altogether, I think both of these fragrances are definitely something a little bit different. And I do kind of understand why the library collection is not talked about a lot. That's not to say that all of these fragrances are bad. And I don't think they're bad per se, but I don't love these ones, and I have to still look at the rest of the collection. I think, I'm hoping for maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6, and I do remember smelling 6 in the airport and actually enjoying it quite a bit. But in either case, I think that it's worth checking them out if you like Amouage, just because it feels like there's probably a hidden gem somewhere in this library collection. I think this is the thing that I want to... So, I think this is also the thing, is that... So I know a lot of times people often will say or comment on how, people don't do a lot of negative reviews, and they always kind of think something's up with there. But, especially reviewing these particular fragrances, which I don't even hate, it's just not as fun as reviewing a fragrance that you're really passionate about and you really enjoy. And so, and for a lot of people, this is kind of a hobby. So, when you end up reviewing a fragrance that you don't really like, it's not as fun and it takes away from the fun. But, I definitely invested in a lot of these decants, so I do want to talk about them, get, my opinion out there, and maybe it'll help people decide if they like it or want to try it out. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be it for this one. If you like this style of review, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let me know. And if you've tried anything from the library collection for Amouage, definitely let me know down below which one it is, which one you like, or which ones you don't like. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.